Get the
Let
atmosphere
me
going here.
hang on a second. I'm getting it recording. Okay, I think we're good.
Alrighty. So, Michaela. Oh wait, I guess I could start with. You guys ready?
Ready?
I think so.
All right. Um, well, hi everybody. Welcome to the CSF podcast. I'm Brandon. I'm on staff with CSF, and joining me today are.
Hi, I'm Abigail. I'm on staff with CSF as well.
Hi, I'm Michaela. I just joined recently. I'm a freshman at UCA.
Awesome. So, Michaela, you were kind of the initiator of this topic. Did you have it condensed into a question?
It's kind of hard to say. So I'm pretty new to the whole experience. I'm learning. And so there's just kind of where do you start when
Mm,
you start your Christian journey? Like something like that, I would say.
yeah.
Because it's difficult, especially starting off like later in life when you know, most people get to start at an early age. So if
Yeah,
that
great. That's a unique question because, serving here in the Bible Belt, people usually are familiar with kind of growing up a Christian. People will say growing up a Christian or whatever. So it's actually a kind of a fun thing that we get to talk about this because this is actually such an important part of the Christian walk. How you start is how you end, right? So we have basically when I was considering this, and what time is it now? It's 2:05. So we'll keep it probably around 20 minutes. We'll shoot for that. Um, yeah, so when I was thinking about this, I was wondering for you if you had any idea or have been told where to start or have thought where's a good place to start. Did you have any thoughts on that already?
So, I've asked and I've had friends who've gone to church their entire lives. So they said like the best way to get involved is to kind of put yourself in there. You kind of have to throw yourself in almost in a random spot. Like there's no perfect way of doing it almost. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there could be an easier transition, I guess, than because for me so far, it's been pretty easy. It's just there's more work to it, especially since you're starting off later, and I don't, and like there's a little bit of like study on my part to like understand more than like other people are already like understanding when you talk to them,
Mm-hmm.
and
I
there's
see.
like you need more clarification, I feel.
Well, even I need more clarification, and especially Abigail does. So it's actually kind of funny you mentioned that because you pretty much have just jumped in, at least for the club.
Yeah.
We see you all the time now, which is awesome. So, okay, so I was considering some verses, and actually, there's just one verse that makes the most sense to me to use. Because I guess if we're going to ask about something Christian related, we should have a Bible verse, right? Otherwise, that's like our foundation. So, I was thinking, so we're talking about beginning the Christian life, and as you've mentioned, there's already a lot of things that immediately pop into our head because there's like, we know about all these teachings and all these commandments and what do Christians look like and how should I act and speak and be and think, right? There's like a flood of all kinds of things. And that can actually be pretty overwhelming because you might have an idea of what you think a Christian should be. And then you look at yourself and you're like, well, I have a long way to go. Right. And so actually, I think the best place for an example, this is what the verse does give us, but is if you just consider a human. So it's kind of like starting off fresh. And, I mean, that's basically like being a baby, right? So in a sense, we're like children in the faith. That's a pretty scriptural
I'm
term.
sorry, you've cut off,
Oh no.
or I'm like my Wi-Fi's bad.
Oh, actually, I heard UCA's Wi-Fi
Hold
was bad.
on.
Uh,
Everything's frozen. Let me. I
just let
think
us
our.
know when you can hear us regularly.
Oh, um, hold on. I don't want to leave completely.
Uh-huh.
I think I'm gonna try to leave and come back.
Okay, that's no
Hopefully it'll
problem.
work.
We're gonna edit the film, so it's fine.
Okay, hold on.
So sad.
What's that?
I said, so sad.
I know, we were just getting started.
hmm I was thinking of the verse in John 3. She mentioned being older and feeling like she's
Mm.
starting off being older, where Jesus is telling Nicodemus, you must be born
Mhm.
again. So it's like, it's the same for everybody, no matter how old you are.
Yeah, that's good. You should mention that.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll just throw that straight in.
Now it's working much better. I turned on my audio.
Nice.
Okay.
Okay. So we're coming in clear, loud and clear?
Yep.
All
It's
right,
all
what was
good.
the last thing you heard?
I don't remember. I just remember. You were talking about verses. That's where I
Yeah,
remember.
so we need a verse to stand on. Otherwise, it's just my thoughts, and my thoughts aren't very useful. So the Bible is more useful than my thoughts are. So I was thinking, so basically your question is, how do I start the Christian life? And so if you're a human, what is the start of a human life? What do we call that stage?
Birth.
Birth. That's right, yeah. Birth. Being a baby. I think Abigail probably has a lot of experience in this field. She's been a baby for a long time. But so yeah, so that's the neat thing, this is a really good picture because basically, actually Abigail, maybe you can mention that verse that you were just telling me.
Yeah, so I was just thinking of John 3, where Jesus actually met up with Nicodemus, who came to him with a lot of questions. And interestingly, Nicodemus was an old man and a teacher of the law, and he was basically asking Jesus where to start. He didn't know that's what he was asking, but he was. And Jesus said, well, you have to be born again, right? So it doesn't really matter how old we are or what our experience is. When we come to Jesus, we're all starting from the same place, and we're starting as a baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's really good. So with that, so basically we're all on the same page. And it doesn't matter if you're starting in college or if you're starting when you're 7 or 8, like I did, or I think Abigail was young when she was
Yeah.
saved, or if you're, 50, or some people even get saved when they're like on their deathbed. So, we're all in the same boat. But really the important thing is what is the most important thing for a baby to have? I don't know if you're too familiar with this area yet, Michaela, if you had siblings or something like that, nieces and nephews.
I had a couple nieces, but food, love, shelter, I mean, those are like
Yeah. So the main thing, Drew was telling me this, that they go in for checkups with Liam, Drew and Hannah do. And the main question that they ask is he eating? Is he sleeping? Right? Those are the two, Abigail?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So my background is labor and delivery. I'm a nurse, and yeah, when we have a newborn baby, that's what happens. As soon as the baby is born, we actually give it to the mom, and we have her hold it until it's first feeding. So it actually stays on mom until it feeds the first time. And babies are wired to go after the milk, and they can smell it. They just know they need it. And they're wired to go after it. And then that's what we're monitoring the whole time they're in the hospital. Anytime they come back to the doctor's office afterwards, it's all about whether they're eating.
Awesome. So you may be wondering, why are we talking about babies and eating? Well, that brings us to our main verse. So this is from 1 Peter 2. It's 2:2-3. It says, as newborn babes, long for the guileless milk of the word, okay, in order that by it you may grow unto salvation. So that's verse 2. So basically, Peter's writing this to the believers, and he's telling them, just like a newborn babe, they long for the milk, right, from their mother's milk. Actually, this is kind of a cool point. If you think about it, I had siblings, so I remember these days somewhat. You guys might remember some. But babies do not care how you feel when they want to eat. It's like, I need the milk, give it to me. Like right now, I will have it. Like, I don't care if you're tired. I don't care if you're busy. Like, I will have this right now. And if I don't have it, I will scream until I have it. Right? That's literally what babies do, and how they feel about the milk. And so he's saying, in that same way, that kind of like desperation, he says, you also need to learn to long for the milk of the word. So basically, and he says, in order that by it you may grow into salvation. So as long as a baby drinks milk and then, sleeps and does the other side of eating, the reverse, then the baby grows, right? And so it's the same way for us. If we spend time in the Word, then over time we just grow. Like, it's just what happens, right? You can't give a baby food and time and the baby not grow. It's like impossible, right? And so then I'll finish the verse. It says, if you have tasted that the Lord is good. So basically all we're going to do, we're just going to break down this verse a little bit. I think that'll be a really good start. If we can get this in, like if you can get the hang of this, Michaela, then you got a better starting place than most believers do, I would say, better than I had when I was growing up. And so I think the first section here we're going to break down is long for the word. So I don't know if you've heard the Bible also called the Word, because it's the Word of God. So a lot of times it says the Word. But basically, we need to learn how to long for it with desperation. And so I don't know about you, but when I was in college, I didn't long for the Word. I don't know, do you feel like, how do you feel, if you had to rate your own like longing for spiritual milk out of 10, what would you say it typically runs at?
I'd say for me, I feel like it's a bit stronger. Like there's like a 7 because there's like I did grow up with like a lot of people who were really like they seemed more at peace. Like they felt more at home when they went out and like they everything was almost to a point where they were pretty content. But I also feel like that comes with a sense of like community, which is really good in so like and I just feel like they're able to hard to put into words when you think about it.
Mm.
There's just this like sense of belonging. They know what they're doing. They know what they're going for. They know what their purpose is. And then you've got those who aren't and they're just looking for it. And I feel like maybe this is a good answer to a lot of that.
Yeah. A 7 out of 10, that's pretty good. So that means, have you been doing the Roots by the River daily reading?
I would say I wish I had, but I get up pretty early and work on homework and then I've got Gray.
That's right. Old Gray. So
Yeah,
the desire is there, but maybe the practical finding the time is a little bit trickier.
hard. Yes.
For sure. I think a lot of people feel that. Well, that does bring me to one of the points, which is helpful, I think. Abigail, feel free to jump in and interrupt at any time. Which is that, what does a baby need in order to get milk? Or rather, who does a baby need? Yeah, that's an open question. It's all you.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, when a baby's first born in the hospital, like I said, we put them in their mother's arms. And some babies don't actually take off eating right away. And when that happens, we actually help them make sure they get a taste of the milk. So the nurses will actually help. And then the mom, of course, she recognizes when the baby is cueing. So what's going on with the baby that shows that they actually need to eat. So, Michaela, you actually kind of touched on this at the very beginning, that some of your friends had told you basically to jump on in there, just to jump in.
Mm-hmm.
And there is an aspect of that I think that's really healthy. Babies aren't born into a vacuum, they're born into a family. And that family includes parents who learn to recognize when the baby needs to eat, right? And learn to, and they know what the baby needs to eat as well.
Definitely. I think sometimes the baby doesn't even know what it needs, but the mom knows. Right? The mom knows that it's time to eat.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so
actually, crying is a late sign of hunger. There's actually some earlier signs. And so a mom who really is paying attention to her baby, she can tell when they need to eat long before they're like crying and upset and stressed out.
That's awesome. So on one hand, we're the babe, right? We're the baby, and we need to learn to be desperate because we need milk to grow. On the other hand, if you don't have mom and dad, especially mom in this case, you're gonna have a hard time, right? And so really this applies to our experience because we always need to have those who are, in a sense, they're above us. They're really just a little bit further ahead than we are. Not in a hierarchical way, but just they have more experience. And so basically, even when you're younger, I remember my parents doing like the airplane, they do like the choo choo and all the noises, because they know that sometimes baby doesn't want to eat, right? Sometimes baby is stubborn or is not happy or whatever. But it doesn't really matter how you feel. Mom and dad know that if I can get food in, everything else will be taken care of. And so sometimes we're the same way. I think we're not always in the mood to spend time with the Lord. We're not always in the right condition, or we have anxieties, or we have Gray who is begging for attention, and so we need to be with people who know our need even a little bit better than we do, and who are more experienced at getting the food in. And so I don't know if do you have a regular one-on-one yet, Michaela, with any Abigail or Phoebe?
One-on-one.
Okay, probably not. So one-on-one's what we just call when a staff member and a student meets up, or it could be a student and a student, but that's a little bit more rare. But so those are times when we basically we just want to be with students, because we may not know what's going on or how to be helpful, but we might, because we have some experiences ourselves. And so so I think having spiritual parents, so basically, which would mean sticking around for you, right? Practically. Sounds like your mom is also a believer who's pretty seeking, active.
She was when she was younger, but when she works like weekends and throughout the week, she's back and forth between Louisiana and Arkansas. So she's never in one spot for long. So it's hard for her to ever do any of that stuff. Ever
Gotcha.
involved, because she's always somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. I see. So maybe for now, it seems like for you or other students, a really good place to start is just, we have the staff members here, right? Who, I don't know how experienced we are, but we can at least do the choo-choo in the airplane to get things going. Because sometimes the word, we just don't know how to eat it, right? We don't know how to enjoy it. And so, even I think one other good point, two other good points is that parents, they know how much food to give at one time. And so sometimes we need just a little bit, I just need a little bit of a word of encouragement, right? A verse. But sometimes I need a lot. I'm open, I'm ready. And so that's kind of like a little bit of a discernment that's needed. And also parents know how to cut up food for the baby. And so we have to have bite-sized chunks. And so these are just kind of the functions of those who help us in our Christian walk. That's all I had for this point. I don't know if Abigail, if you had anything.
No, I don't.
Okay, so the other one that actually tags onto this, it's also with spiritual parents, we also need spiritual siblings. And so who would you think the spiritual siblings would be for you, Michaela?
Like the other students, and especially Rebecca, she's been kind of helpful towards it, I would say, because she hasn't specifically taught me, but she's helped me say, how we go to this and see what they have to say, and just kind of be help when it comes to guiding. So
That's awesome. Yeah, so siblings, my 2 points that I wrote down here for my notes, I put they eat together. So students ideally, there's usually some upperclassmen, so there may be a little bit more experience, but typically students are kind of all on the same playing field. Even people who grow up Christian, usually it seems like typically in my experience, they're not really any further along than when they first got saved, unfortunately. And so it's almost like everyone gets to college and it's like a level playing field. And so that's not always the case, but it seems to be fairly common. And so really the good thing about having other students is that you're learning together, right? Maybe someone's a little bit further ahead and they can help you. Maybe someone's a little bit behind you and you can help them, right? And that also leads to mutual encouragement. So maybe, I don't know if you had this experience, but sometimes someone will just share a verse. Hey, I was reading my Bible reading today and this stuck out to me, right? And so you have kind of a mutual encouragement and pursuit. Whereas sometimes I know with a staff member, you might feel the age gap a little bit more. It's a strange phenomenon that we're experiencing now that I've graduated.
I think one of the great opportunities for this is once again with the Roots by the River. And you know how a lot of times we eat lunch together at the cafeteria, and a lot of times we'll pull out that chapter for the day, and like you said, you get up early, you start studying, and it's hard for you to get that in. But that time there at the cafeteria, having lunch, that's the perfect time. There we are, we're eating. it's the perfect time to eat together, right? And to just open up that chapter and just read it together. And then, if there's something that stands out to you or and standing out to another student, you can just talk about it right there. And it's actually easier.
It is.
You
I
know,
think
it's,
I like prefer to do my readings with y'all at the
yeah,
table because
Mhm.
there's like if I'm confused, I can ask Phoebe or you like how exactly what does that mean? Like how would you interpret that or
yeah,
something along the lines.
yeah. It's a great opportunity, huh?
Oh, a gray opportunity. Was that what you're doing? Oh, I thought that was a pun off Gray. Sorry. Anyway, okay, so we're just gonna roll along. We have a little bit of time left because we had a little gap there when you cut out. So this is for. So we have like kind of who we do it with, who we need to help us along, and then we also this is for growth. So the verse says, "In order that by the milk you may grow." And so I kind of already mentioned this, but there's actually, you could make an equation for growth. Really, if you, I don't know, is that something that you think would be helpful? If I had an equation that guaranteed growth every time, I would like to know what that is, right?
Of course.
Right, right. So with a baby, it's basically food plus rest plus time, right? If you have those three things, babies grow, and even we grow. And so it's really the same in a Christian walk. If we have a little bit of food, which I don't know if this is explicitly mentioned to you yet, but we're hinting that the word is also a kind of food as a milk.
I was
We
hoping
have
so.
we have the Bible, and then we have rest, which it's a little bit harder when it comes to mind to think what rest is. I think one thing might be is just spending time with the Lord kind of brings in rest. There's a famous Psalm 23 says, "The Lord is my shepherd and he makes me lie down." So basically, college is a pretty turbulent time inwardly, especially now because everything's online. It seems like a lot of students are pretty stressed out. And so if you're anxious, you don't have much rest. But if you spend time with the Lord, a lot of times we find that he kind of makes us lie down. So he calms us even. So we're in a place where we can have rest and then time. So you're probably not gonna get up tomorrow and reflect on the day before and be like, I'm definitely, taller than I was yesterday. Right. But after a year, you may not notice, but if you think back, like, actually, I think some things are different than they used to be last year, or even after some months. And so it's really the same way with the Christian growth. There's not like a magic formula of like tomorrow, all the growth is there. But just like real life, it's like a day by day, little bit by little bit. And so then that results in, so the verse finishes, you may grow unto salvation. And so this is kind of a neat point maybe for another time, but basically we've been saved, but salvation is also a daily thing. So we get saved a little bit more every day in another sense. And so, yeah, I don't know. Any thoughts on there? Maybe not. It's okay. Well, that brings us to the last point. Okay. So that is developing a taste. So basically, this sounds good, right? Like, okay, I have the Bible, which is the primary way which God speaks to me and feeds me as a new believer. And I know I need to be in the Word and also with people in the Word. And that causes me to grow. But I still haven't prioritized it that much. I think this is most people's struggle, is they recognize that it's good, but either one, I don't have time, or two, I don't really care to make time, right? Because I have other things that I want to do, right? I have other interests. And so I think the real key to this is the next verse says, if you have tasted that the Lord is good. Did you know you could taste the Lord? You ever heard that before?
No, I have not.
Yeah, that's a strange Bible verse. I love it because it's so weird. It literally says, if you have tasted that the Lord is good. And so, yeah, so one thing my dad told me growing up, he said, the more you read the Bible, it becomes less like broccoli and more like chocolate. And my dad does not eat most green things. And so He was right. I think in my experience, and maybe Abigail can testify to this too, maybe I started off reading the word and it was just kind of like, I know I need to. I'm just going to read my chapter, or I'm going to read whatever I've set. But over time, it's like you start to get little tastes, and it's like, wow, this is actually a little bit better than I remember. And you have these kind of, and eventually, maybe you get to a point where like, I want to read the word today. Like I don't even want to miss my time in the word today because it tastes so good, right? I don't know, Abigail, did you? I know you've been reading since you were young.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like that's true though. The more you read, Michaela, you mentioned like being confused about things or not understanding things sometimes, and that can be a real stumbling block when trying to read the word, especially when starting out, for those who have first started. And one of the things that I found is, of course, the more I read, the more I start seeing like the themes and the consistencies, and like things start coming together for me, and I remember things. And so that helps a lot. But, just by way of encouragement, once again, thinking about it in terms of like milk, like mother's milk. I think one of the coolest things about mother's milk is that the baby doesn't understand it, right? And they don't know what's in the mother's milk. But that milk actually adapts to the needs of the baby. Um, so if the baby's sick, more antibodies. If the baby needs to gain weight, and is eating more, then higher fat content. The water content can change, all of those kinds of things. The milk actually adapts to the needs of the baby. And so I think the word is actually like that too. As we are in it, it becomes living to us. Does that make sense? The more we're in it, that's definitely been my experience as well.
Yeah, awesome. And so the practical advice, Michaela, for your question, the rubber meets the road. It's like, yeah, that sounds great. What do I do? How do I do it? We have to, spend a little bit of time in the word daily, because babies eat every day. And two is we have to spend time until we learn to taste something. So that's kind of the thing. We're not just reading with our mind, exercising our mind to read, but we also have a deeper part in us, the spirit. And so that spirit is ready to be used, right? So that, it's like Jesse's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, we more than even just reading to read, we want our students to learn to read so that they taste something. And so the Bible becomes enjoyable. And so maybe I think you should probably get with Abigail or Phoebe. Y'all could talk about like some kind of reading plan so that it can maybe help you start somewhere. If a chapter a day is too much, then we can always start a little less than that. It's no problem. But yeah, basically the number one requirement is you have to be in the Bible. Otherwise, we're not eating. And so no eat, no growth. And I think really everything else will come out of that, because as you're in it, not only are you eating, but you're learning, right? You're learning all these things as well. So I hope that was helpful to your question.
I feel like it definitely was. It is helpful to like kind of understand more of it, I guess. Like there's more to it. Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, awesome. And so anyway, that's all I have. Oh, actually, I did want to mention one more thing. This will be the last comment, unless Abigail has a closing comment. I heard someone, they were studying, they're looking at a concordance, which basically means it has like words in it, and then you can look up a word, say your word is like study, and you want to know how many times and where does the Bible say study. And so the concordance, you can literally just look up the word study, and it tells you like this place, this place, this place, this many times. So it's kind of a neat thing that helps you like study the Bible. But actually, this guy's point was that study in the New Testament is never explicitly mentioned, and it's only somewhat mentioned about twice. Okay, studying the Bible. So that's the Berean study, and there's another one, I forgot what the other one was. And there's some that do imply knowledge of the word, of course. And in the Old Testament, which is a much bigger book, there's even only a few passages that talk about studying. But the Old Testament is full of verses that talk about eating the Lord's word and enjoying it. And so that's really our primary goal, Michaela, and anyone who listens, is we don't just want to study the Bible, although we do. That's kind of what we do here. But we want to learn to taste and to enjoy it. So if we have that mindset when we approach the word, I think we'll be good to go. That's all I had. If there's any closing thoughts, speak now, forever hold your peace.
I just love
Good.
that theme. I love that theme repeated from Proverbs. Taste and see that the Lord is good. And if you have tasted that the Lord is good, in other words, the Lord is good. You just have to taste it.
That's right. Yeah, the Lord is good. Don't forget that. Remind me of that. All right. Well, awesome. This concludes the Beginning the Christian Life podcast. Thanks for joining, Michaela. Thanks for your time. I know you probably have studying to do, but
Thank you for having me.
yeah, it was fun. And we shall maybe see you tonight at the singing time.
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
All right, Abigail. I guess I'm just gonna leave, and I trust that your recording software will do its thing.
All right. Bye, Michaela.
All right. Bye bye.